Welcome, everyone, to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abikonistim. IDSF is a movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into these war briefings. It is very important to us at IDSF that you have the opportunity to hear directly from IDSF experts on the ground here in Israel who know what is going on and can connect with you in these very direct and candid briefings. It is, of course, a great pleasure to be joined right now by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF, who retired from the IDF in 2017 with more than 30 years of military, counterterrorism, and national defense experience. Among his positions were aide-de-camp of the Israel Defense Force Chief of Staff, head of the auditing and consulting department of the entire Israeli defense establishment, and deputy commander of the Gaza division. We are also joined by the IDSF head of research, Or Yisachar, who will introduce in a moment. But first, let's go to General Avivi for the war update right now. General, please.
Thank you, Moshe. I just coming now from a meeting with Ben-Gvir, the minister in charge of internal security. We discussed the build-up of the security teams in all the cities and towns in Israel. Overall, more than 700 teams have been built. Some of them 12 people, some of them 50, 60, or 100 people. Depends on the place, how big it is, how many volunteers, and so on. The government has handed more than 8,000 M16s or something similar to M16, not guns, but they're aiming to 21,000. To really strengthen these teams. Also, tens of thousands of permits to people to be able to get license for carrying a gun. So they're pushing this very, very strongly in order to enable more people to carry guns. Overall, I think that we see the whole country getting organized in a way that all the towns and the cities are safer and with many volunteers. We discussed also the issue of moving forward with building Israel's National Guard. It's a process. There's a lot of work to do. And IDSF, in this sense, we are going to assist and help pushing this forward with the Prime Minister and the relevant ministries, including the Ministry of Defense, to really get this process done faster. In Gaza, at the moment, the IDF is continuing all the time to advance and destroy Hamas positions. Have destroyed hundreds of tunnels, headquarters, and we're closing more and more on really the centers of gravity. The army is very near the Shifa hospital and is surrounding other hospitals, and we're taking the time to really get the people out of the hospitals to make sure that all the citizens that were in the hospitals get out, and then it's easier for us to operate and deal with them. So I would say in Gaza, things are going as planned. And every day that passes, we're getting more and more control of the northern part. Eventually, we'll also move to the south. The IDF is really trying hard to get to the hostages. investing a lot of intelligence and capabilities to really understand where they are and how we can free them. So it's done on the ground operationally, but also there are talks with Qatar, Egypt, trying to mediate some deal, at least for the children and women to get released. I don't really know the prospect and if it will happen or not, but at the same time, the more we advance, the stronger we are in our ability to try to get a deal. In Lebanon, it's about getting bolder and bolder, and things are, I would say, to a certain extent, deteriorating. I don't know how long we'll be able to keep the Lebanon and this region on defense and not go on full offense. It's not really clear. At the same time, we see international pressure growing on Israel. We cannot stop. We have to win this war. But we understand also as IDSF that we need to assist in this sense. Tomorrow, I'm flying with a small delegation to the European Union, to Brussels. I will spend 2.5 days with a lot of meetings in Brussels to explain what we're doing, what needs to be done, how to achieve the goals of war, and also how to deal with the humanitarian issues that worries them in Gaza. So it's going to be very important meetings. This is overall the situation. I would say in Judea and Samaria, still things stable, a lot of operations there to apprehend the terrorists. And I can tell you that from driving today in Israel, in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, a lot of traffic. This means that people are, many of them are going back to everyday life, working, doing whatever they are doing, which is good. It's important for the economy. I hope we keep this. It will change if Hezbollah goes to full-scale war, but as long as it's not the case, I would say that the heart of the Israeli economy is still operational and working. Thank you, Moshe.
Thank you so much. And just a note to everyone, although the general will be out of town, our briefings will, of course, continue. I want to just pause for a moment and give a little bit of an explanation of how IDSF functions, because it's not always understood. Are we a think tank? Are we a movement? Are we a speakers bureau? And the answer is yes to all of the above. We're really structured in such a way that allows us to deeply impact Israeli society and, of course, national security. At the core of a lot of what we do is our research and our analysis that comes out of our robust research department. And that really fuels our ability to create policy papers, to speak with policymakers, to educate Israeli society, and to really form the beliefs and opinions of our movement. And that research department really gives the tools to our educators, our IDF heroes who go out to the high schools and pre-army programs and educate and inspire. Those lectures, those talks provide broad exposure to our entire movement and help us build the movement across Israeli society. And with this big movement, we're of course able to present the story of Israel, the national security of needs to Israel with great authority, because it's not just a couple of generals, but it's a significant movement across the depth and breadth of Israel. And that base gives us a lot of authority to present to the international media, the local media, to policymakers, really promoting national security issues here in Israel. And again, much of that starts with our research department, and therefore it's a pleasure to have with us right now Or Yisachar, the head of the research department, who is joining us again, and who is going to, I believe, give us a deep dive into the sinister world of Hezbollah? Or, please.
Thank you, Moshe. Thank you so much. First of all, let me tell you that I'm right now in southern Israel. So that's why, background seems a little irregular. But I'm right here. I just stopped for a moment in some place in the city. I came here to lecture, actually, to give a talk to a group of youngsters who are doing a pre-military course called Mechina. The Mechinot in Israel are really, there are some 70 of them. And these are really a platform for youngsters who are 18, 19, and they finish high school. And before they go to the military as their compulsory service, they join this one-year program where they learn about meaning and identity and Zionism. And, this is precisely the age where you have no worries in your mind to do these things. And every time I go to these groups, I get inspired. Honestly, this is really wonderful youth with these shiny eyes. And we talked about the war and the Palestinian Authority, and really concluded that there's a lot of responsibility on their shoulders because, we ain't gonna finish fighting anytime soon, and our wars are only going to change. So the responsibility on Israel's future is largely on their shoulders. So no pressure there. But we also, I think, agreed that long-term Israel can only rely on itself and its youth and its next generation of combatants in order to survive. And these were just fantastic conversations that we had there. So this is where I am right now. Today we're talking about Hezbollah, but just to show you a little bit, this is like the group of youngsters we just discussed about Zionism, and this is basically in the heart of the Negev. They're growing crops and agriculture, really making the desert flourish. Part of the education that they have to wake up early every morning and really work the fields. It's astounding in the middle of the desert, as you can see in the background. So all of that is taking place, and this is actually a mechina named after On Kukia. When he fell in 2017, he's the son of Boaz Kukia, one of our senior members, and he fell. He was actually murdered really a few steps away from where I am right now in the city of Arad in the southern Israel, which is really right here. If we look at the map of Israel, right in the heart of the desert. And this is where he was murdered by two Bedouin citizens when he was on his way to his base in Hebron. And so they really established this mechina, this military program named after him. So this is where we are right now, but fast track and moving to the north, I believe you all heard about Hezbollah and its moves, and the big question is right now is will Hezbollah fully enter the war? And I think the answer is more complex than that. But first, let's understand what Hezbollah has been doing in the past week or so. So Hezbollah has in past month. I'm sorry. So since the beginning of the war, Hezbollah has intensified its efforts, and it's playing what we call playing under the threshold of war. In normal times, any anti-tank missile fired on IDF soldiers, any rocket fired into Israeli territory, any attack drone would be a declaration of war. But right now, our threshold is maybe higher than required because Israel has no interest to launch an all-out war against Hezbollah at the moment. It's mostly focusing on the southern front, and Hezbollah knows it fairly well. It knows it very well, despite the fact we have tens of thousands of troops on the northern border ready to attack. Hezbollah knows that Israel will not initiate anytime soon unless it's forced to, much like with Hamas in the south. And so what Hezbollah is doing is, drip drop every day, every single day we hear alerts in the north, whether by rocket firing or by anti-tank missile firing or by the launching of attack drones. So yesterday were rumors about alerts in Haifa, right here. It's a central city. You all know it. Many of you probably visited it. And the Hezbollah's effort is actually focusing on defense. So just yesterday, for example, a civilian worker of the Israeli Electric Corporation was killed by an anti-tank missile fired on him while he was operating by the border. There were at least 2 civilians, and 7 IDF soldiers and officers who were killed by these anti-tank missiles and by these rockets. And Hezbollah knows that each time the IDF will retaliate, and the IDF did retaliate, they took the opportunity, and every time they take the opportunity to hit Hezbollah targets and hit Hezbollah bases and weapon silos and all of that, at the end of the day, we're not going to launch a full-scale war against Hezbollah unless it's a timing that is convenient for Israel. And so I think Hezbollah, knowing that the situation, it is taunting Israel, it is probably harassing or taunting it and launching drip-drop operations on the border. But in the end of the day, it is not launching 2,000 rockets per day with the Radwan elite units invading into Israel by ground troops and launching all these massive war efforts that it can. It is choosing not to do it, but it can choose to do it. So let's first of all understand what happened in the last month. We had dozens of rockets fired by Hezbollah, at least several cases of attack drones launched into Israeli territory, some intercepted, and we have at least 7 killed soldiers and officers and 2 civilians who were killed and several wounded. On Hezbollah's side, there are no clear reports, but I believe, Israel believes that at least 70 Hezbollah operatives have been killed by IDF attacks. And Hezbollah is hiding the real numbers because it knows it can demoralize its troops and it can harm its image inside Lebanon. Let's just see some of these IDF retaliations. Right? And this was a launching squad. It was attacked before launching a rocket or a drone. So really, this is what the IDF has been doing, but not more than that. So retaliation and not initiative, because right now Israel's efforts are on the south. Theoretically, Israel can sustain a two-front war, but it is choosing currently not to, unless it is forced to launch this front. But just to let you know that Israel will not, I estimate that Israel cannot sustain the situation forever. And the bitter experience from the south and the neglect of the Hamas threat from the south will force Israel to understand that it cannot neglect the Hezbollah threat either. And at some point, it will have to initiate a preemptive attack against Hezbollah on the northern border. Why do I believe that? Hezbollah, I remind you, it is among the strongest militaries in the world. It has a stronger military, certainly not stronger than the US, Russia, China, Israel, France, United Kingdom, all the countries that we know, but it has certainly stronger combat force than many other smaller nations. With 150,000 rockets and precision-guided missiles guided by GPS, it can hit a target fairly accurately. Imagine 1,000 missiles per day that are aimed at the Knesset, the Kiryat, Tel Aviv, Israel's power stations, the power grid, petrol stations, all the strategic centers, the Mossad headquarters, the government centers, all of its central infrastructure. So it's really not something Israel wants to have. Attack drones that can be guided fairly accurately. It has all these cruise missiles, and it has a network of tunnels that Israel largely demolished. And what it boasts is what it called the Radwan. Radwan is a unit. You can Google it right now. It is the elite unit by Hezbollah that is actually, you can feel free to Google it. The Radwan unit actually counts a few thousand combatants who are considered to be Hezbollah's best and finest troops, and were trained and equipped precisely for this moment, to invade into Israel, to hijack soldiers, to kill civilians, to take over communities, just like Hamas did in the south. And so I don't see how Israel can sustain this kind of threat, knowing what Hamas can do in the south. Hezbollah can do tenfold, 20-fold in the northern border. So let's do this. We all know Hezbollah is a threat, but Hamas proved to us that we cannot continue to neglect these threats and procrastinate the war any longer. The question is, when will Israel have the initiative? And the question is, of course, and here we sort of take a larger prism, and I'll conclude with that, what is the global angle of that war? because the United States has already sent two aircraft carriers into the region, right? The USS Ford and USS Eisenhower. It already has the USS Carney in the Red Sea, and it already sent a strategic submarine, some say nuclear submarine, into the region. The U.S. is warning Hezbollah not to intervene. It is warning the Lebanese government. Hezbollah forms a part of the government and the parliament in Lebanon, and there are means to and leverages to pressure Lebanon and to pressure Hezbollah and to pressure Iran to pressure Hezbollah, because Iran is the main financer and patron of Hezbollah, not to intervene. So even if Hezbollah doesn't intervene, I think Israel will have to coordinate with the Americans in order to launch a preventive strike at some point against preemptive strike against Hezbollah at some point in the future. And it will have to hold Iran accountable. At the end of the day, Iran is the guiding hand behind Hezbollah. It is funding Hezbollah with almost $1 billion per year, almost $1 billion, equipping Hezbollah, transferring advanced weapons, including precision-guided missiles. And so we are just waiting for days to come, the weeks and months to come, to see where all this is going. But at the end of the day, I think we'll have absolutely no choice but to remove this wild card by Iran on our northern border. With that, let's take a few questions.
Thank you so much, Or. So there was a lot of fear, of course, that Hezbollah was going to join the war in those first few days, and it did not. Now that it has not done that, what incentive or what timing exists in the world of Hezbollah? Meaning they've been stockpiling missiles for many, 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 many years. So if they were to join, why now?
Right. So Hezbollah, let's be clear. Hezbollah has lost the element of surprise. Okay. Had Hezbollah attacked on October 7th, I would understand. I would say, okay, that makes sense. War on two fronts. Sounds pretty reasonable. To attack Israel by surprise, catch Israel, excuse me, completely off guard. And we can only imagine in our worst nightmares what would happen to communities in the north. But Hezbollah didn't do it. And my gut tells me that Hezbollah didn't really know about Hamas intentions in the south. It was as surprised as we were. And right now it has lost the element of surprise because the entire IDF is on the northern border. 100,000 Israelis already evacuated from the south and from the north. There are almost no residents in northern Israel in the, let's say, 4 or 5 miles from the border, border towns. There are, of course, people still remain there, but most of them already left into hotel rooms in the rest of Israel. And so will Hezbollah attack? I think it's up to Iran and Hezbollah. As I told you, I think we need to go one step ahead and attack. But Iran is, let's understand the logic, Iran keeps Hezbollah as a shield against Israel's intention to strike Iran. And if Iran loses this wild card called Hezbollah, it is totally exposed to an Israeli and American attack on its own nuclear facilities in Iran. And my hunch tells me that it is keeping Hezbollah for that kind of scenario, but we never know. We might wake up in the morning and find out that Hezbollah is firing 3,000 rockets per day on Israel and trying to invade. So we'll see about that.
You mentioned Iran. If Israel were to attack Hezbollah, does Iran view this as an attack on Iran, or Hezbollah is a proxy, and just because there could be a war with Hezbollah, Iran does not necessarily view themselves as being entered into the conflict?
There is a chain of evolution in the Iranian mind. So Hamas is the lowest chain in the human evolution. Some people call it Iranian look at Hamas as disposable dishes, right? To use them once and throw them away, and then Hezbollah is another level in the rank, and then Iran itself. And I think Iran views an attack on Hamas as an attack on Iran. They said so. They warned Israel that we Iranians can launch a preventive strike if you launch a ground attack against Hamas in Gaza. And then it continued. The Iranian leader, the Iranian foreign minister, all warned Israel, do not attack Hezbollah because we will intervene. I don't see them intervening, to be really honest, but we never know. They might intervene in order to save themselves. They are threatening. Right now, they threaten, but the question is whether they will, use all their cards, and then in a few days it will totally expose. So let's see about that. Iran has the largest stockpile of missiles in the Middle East, ground-to-ground missiles. They cover the entire area of Israel, but very easily, and even reach as far as Eastern Europe. We need to be really serious about the Iranian threat. If the US and Europe are serious about peace in the Middle East, the key is holding Iran accountable, and it will have to happen one day. I can't hear you, Moshe. You are mute.
Okay, sorry about that. There are many questions coming on many topics. I want to try, if possible, to stick to the Hezbollah-related ones. Coordination between Hezbollah and Hamas. Are you able to comment how that works, if at all?
Yeah, very briefly. There is this thing called Jerusalem Axis. Please Google IDSF Jerusalem Axis and you'll find it. This is the coordinated war room that Hezbollah, Hamas, PIJ, and other factions have in southern Lebanon. It is not fully operative. It's not like they all sit in one room, Nasrallah, PIJ, Hamas, and decide what to do. But Iran is pushing for that to happen, and it's semi-working. So Hezbollah and Hamas are both Iranian proxies. They all get their instructions from Tehran, but Hezbollah has internal Lebanese interest and Hamas has internal Palestinian interest. It's not like an automatic push of button, and they both operate according to instructions from Tehran. But very obviously, if Hezbollah is almost entirely financed by Iran, and Hamas is very largely financed by Iran, they will have to do something if Iran instructs. But Hezbollah and Hamas, we saw statements that show how Hezbollah is not crazy about Hamas, is not entirely keen on this cooperation. It loves this image that it developed for itself. And Hamas officials say, we are expecting Hezbollah to do more. We are being killed in Gaza, and Hezbollah is not doing anything in the north except firing a few missiles. So there is this daylight between them now, and we'll see what's happening.
Okay, the Lebanese government, can you talk a little bit about how Lebanon fits in with what's happening in southern Lebanon and Hezbollah?
Generally, Lebanon is, dreadful from the notion that Israel will launch a war against Hezbollah because they know there will be the first victim. I am reminding you of the Second Lebanon War and how Beirut looked like the day after. And they are looking at, and this would be peanuts compared to the Third Lebanon War, if and when imposed on Israel. I think Lebanon and both Netanyahu and Gallant and Halevi and all the senior Israeli leadership warned Hezbollah and Lebanon not to intervene because they will see destruction ruin the scale they can't imagine. Secretary Austin also said it. Biden said the famous don't do it, don't take advantage of the moment. And Lebanon looks at Gaza and says, this is the trailer compared to what's waiting for us if we attack, because Israel holds Lebanon accountable. We have to understand this. Hezbollah, because it forms a part of Lebanon's government, cabinet, and parliament, it is basically considering Lebanon to be attacking Israel, just Hezbollah. So Najib Mikati, the Lebanese prime minister, reportedly met Nasrallah, pressuring him not to act. But we see, for example, the Druze leader, Walid Janbalat, actually saying it's a great idea to attack and we fully have Hezbollah's back. We'll see what happens, but most Lebanese, and we see it in the media and social media too, are dreading the notion of Israel launching a war against them and are trying to force Hezbollah to just, keep it in the threat level and not to move on to launch an attack.
We are just about out of time. Thank you so much to all of our viewers. Thank you, of course, to Or. I'm going to ask you one final question, Or, and of course, we know you're not a prophet, so we're not going to hold you to this. But if Hezbollah, Khalila, were to attack Israel and Iran joined in the fight, do you think the US would actively get involved and attack Iran with their aircraft carriers, submarines, whatever else they've deployed?
Well, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, would I have a Merry Christmas, right? That's what they say. I can't prophesize. I don't think to know what's going to happen. I also don't want you to cut this clip and broadcast this in live television and say, aha, he was right or he was wrong. I'm only saying that I'm just using logic and an observation of my knowledge of the theaters and knowing Iran as a Farsi speaker and an Iranian, a researcher of Iran, and semi-Arabic speaker, researcher of the Middle East. I think um, at the end of the day, you know, if Iran decides to enter the war, it's a whole other different ballgame. Okay, so Israel will have to know that what we are having right now, sitting in a nice bar in Arad and talking to you, would not be possible. Okay, because the entire country will be targeted with ground-to-ground missiles, attack drones on a daily, hourly, minutely basis. So what we're in for is a totally different movie, as we say. It's a totally different ballgame. And I think the United States will have no choice but to intervene, to strike Iran itself, and possibly cyber attacks to prevent it from launching missiles, attacking Lebanon itself, and again, using sophisticated means to prevent them from attacking. The United Nations will have to go into the action. NATO, perhaps, France, the United Kingdom. This will be a regional war, and I don't see anyone just sitting in the sidelines. This will be a whole different ballgame. I don't see Israel contending with all of this by itself. The U.S. knows it has interest in Israel, not just a friendship and alliance. It also has interest in Israel, and will just have to intervene. So I don't see that happening, but we didn't see October 7th happen either. So we just have to be on the lookout and dissuade and deter Iran from ever doing that.
Uri Sachar, thank you so much for that. We're not going to hold you to anything here. We know you're not a prophet, but deeply appreciate your insights, your analysis. You are certainly a subject matter expert. Thank you again to all of our viewers. We will see you all again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Stay safe, stay strong, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Take care.